Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the backdoors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Welcome, everyone, to the Golden State Media Concepts Science Fiction Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I'm actually really excited about this episode. So now, most of this episode, I am, if we have enough time later on in the episode, give you guys some updates on some science fiction news that I have come across, which I'm very excited to share as well. But if we don't get to it, then I will definitely be sure to share it with you in the next episode. So don't worry, we will get to it because there are some exciting movies that are coming out, as well as some just news about some other movies that are in production as well. But anyway, so I did want to spend a lot of time in this episode discussing Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange is out of the Marvel Universe, for those of you who don't know, which is okay because we're all learning in this process, which I've actually had a lot of fun in getting to know a lot of the different characters and comic books and science fiction writers and sci-fi producers and editors, and just all the new world that me learning about science fiction has really opened up for me. So I'm really excited, and so I have been anticipating and waiting to go see Doctor Strange in theaters. Now, the reason why I've been waiting about this is because, one, I'll be honest, because I wanted to discuss it on the show, as well as the fact that I personally didn't know much about Doctor Strange at all. And so I was really excited for this show and for this movie, this film that just came out. And so I did go see it this past weekend with my mom, and we had a lot of fun. And the thing is my mom really wanted to see it as well, because thanks to all the trailers, and because we do like, I personally love dimensions and movies in regards to different dimensions and things being relative. I do. I like trying to figure things out. And so Doctor Strange in this film that was starring Benedict Cumberbatch brought that and had a lot of that, as well as some magic, and of course it's more of a introduction / origins story line for Doctor Strange at this time. And so, which I think that they did very, very well, because I don't now, for those of you who have not seen the movie, I'm going to be very, very careful and make sure that I do not give off any spoilers or anything. But then for those of you who are familiar with Doctor Strange's story, and I'm going to give some background on him as a comic book character as well, for those of you who are a little bit more unfamiliar with him, which is totally fine, because he really isn't one of those main Marvel characters that, or like, he's not, well, technically now, and this is something that I guess you could say that it's perhaps because I don't know that much about, and there was some allusion, a little bit of some imagery that alluded to the fact that he was an Avenger. And they didn't say anything about that portion yet. But again, if you know anything about the comics and him, and if you've read any of the comics, then you already know kind of what that is about, as far as the fact that he was an Avenger, but he's not an Avenger anymore. And so, which we can always get into later in the episode as well. But in the movie, they did allude to that. There is one symbol, and so one symbolic scene in the movie, but they don't ever really talk about that at all. And so maybe perhaps they will get into that in other movies and in other films that will be featuring Doctor Strange. But this was, like I said, more of like an origin story and like how he obtained his powers and his sorcery and things like that. And so I did want to give a quick overview and like a review of it as far as from my point of view. And then also I do want to give some background on Doctor Strange, because if you're like me and this is still something that is very fresh and new, after seeing the movie, quite honestly and quite frankly, I like Doctor Strange a lot. And so I really did want to get to know him better and get to know his true story and get to know like his background and get to know him as a person as well as a superhero. You know, like I don't know if he's my favorite, but right now he is. And I wanted to get to know him more. Now, okay. So anyway, so I went to go see the movie. Now the movie was, and unfortunately, I did not see it in 3D. Now, if you have the opportunity to go see this movie while it's still in theaters, which I highly recommend, and if you are teetering on whether or not to see this movie in 3D or just regular 2D, I personally highly recommend that you go see it in 3D. And actually, the plan is for my mom, because my brothers, like I said, I went to go see this movie with just myself and my mom. And so we're actually planning on going to see it with my brothers when they come home from college during the holidays, hopefully next week sometime even, as we approach Thanksgiving, but to go see it again. And to go see it in 3D this time, because we just feel like there's a lot of elements of the movie that we missed that would have been a lot more fun and enjoyable if we did get to see it in 3D. But anyway, so it is starring Benedict Cumberbatch, and also Rachel McAdams is in there. And she is kind of like the love interest of Doctor Strange. Okay. And then Tilda Swinton, who is the Ancient One. She plays the Ancient One. Now, it was directed by Scott Derrickson. And if you know about Scott, Mr. Derrickson, then you know that he is the man behind The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which I have not seen in its entirety. Sinister, as well as, and these are some, he's the man behind a lot of other films as well, but these are some of those major ones. And then, so like I said, Sinister, he wrote but did not direct Sinister 2. And then also the other film that Deliver Us from Evil. So he directed his own script for Deliver Us from Evil. So he kind of does some scary stuff. And if you know me and you've been listening to this podcast or any of the other podcasts that I'm on with the network, then you guys know that I do not like scary movies. I don't watch them. I don't watch scary movies, so rightfully so. And it takes, I mean, you guys can assume that I have not seen any of these other movies that he has done. And in Doctor Strange, some scenes were a little bit freaky. They were. They really, really were. And if you guys are into that kind of stuff, then you guys are going to be like, no, it wasn't really that scary. But there's some magic. You know, he's a sorcerer. And so there is a lot of magic. There's some things that I was just like, ooh, that's really creepy. And I kind of didn't like it because it made me really uncomfortable because it's like magic and, you know, the sorcery part. But then it's not too much. It's only rated PG-13. And you guys know by listening to our previous episode when my co-host Shay was with us that he had given us the history of different ratings and what can be categorized as PG-13. And so it's just enough to where it's not too scary, if that makes any sense. Like, I could handle it. I handled the scary parts. And so it's not a horror film or one of those really psychological, scary, horror, evil things that is under Mr. Derrickson's belt. And so this was a lot of fun. And when we come back from this quick break, I want to give you guys a little bit more of my review. And if you don't know by now, like I really did enjoy Doctor Strange. I really, really did. And then some background on Doctor Strange, because like I said, if you're like me, he's kind of new. And you may have heard of him, you may know of him, but not really. Do we really know him? And so keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Science Fiction Podcast. I'm Pauline, and I will be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Science Fiction Podcast. And I wanted to give you guys a quick synopsis. I'm going to read you guys the synopsis for Doctor Strange and tell you a little bit more about it, and then give you guys just some general background. And if you haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, it's still in theaters, and so you still have time to go experience it for yourself. And like I said, I really, really suggest that you go see it in 3D. But anyway, so the quick synopsis right here, and you could Google this, and it's up there. You can go watch the trailer, of course, and it was, okay, so just some background, just so you guys can kind of get where I'm coming from. So it was released on November 4th, so just about a week ago. Okay, and on IMDb, it received an 8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 90%, and then Metacritic gave it a 72%. So it's definitely getting some really strong reviews. Let's see. On Screen Rant by Ben Kendrick, he said Doctor Strange manages to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe while also telling a satisfying story in its own isolated corner. Because like I said, he's not really technically an Avenger. So, but if you've seen the movie, then you guys know what I mean when I say I don't want to give a spoiler. But anyway, so here is the film synopsis. So Dr. Stephen Strange, who's played by Benedict Cumberbatch, Strange's life changes after a car accident robs him of the use of his hands. When traditional medicine fails him, he looks for healing and hope in a mysterious enclave. He quickly learns that the enclave is at the front line of a battle against unseen dark forces bent on destroying reality. Before long, Strange is forced to choose between his life of fortune and status or leave it all behind to defend the world as the most powerful sorcerer in existence. So, like I said, this movie, again, is kind of like an origin story. And so we see Doctor Strange, who truly is a doctor. He has his PhD, and it's really, really cool because they do just enough. The one thing that I like about this movie is they do just enough background without dragging it out, and then they don't really rush into him becoming Doctor Strange as far as a superhero sorcerer. And then he has, of course, an epic battle that he must face, an epic challenge, of course. And so I think they did a really good job of making sure, and it's almost 2 hours long. Okay, it's 1 hour and 55 minutes, so it's a good length of a film. And they do a really good job of showing him as a person and giving us kind of like a feel for his attitude and a feel for his lifestyle as just Dr. Strange, as just being a world-renowned doctor, like a real-life actual surgeon. Okay, and then they take us to how and why he chooses to study sorcery and how he gets to that point. Now, if you are a fan of the comics, they don't really give a lot of background about his family life, okay, and about him growing up. And if you know anything about him growing up, he grew up in Philadelphia, and he has a brother and sister. And one cause of the reason why he went into the medical field is due to his sister Donna, right? And so that's some background for us that don't really know about Doctor Strange, but that's how he kind of got pushed into the medical field, was him helping his ailing sister Donna. And so, and he's super, super smart. Like, he's just very, very, very intelligent, kind of, just like a super brain, really. And then they don't touch on too much of how he gets into medicine. Like, when we first meet him, he's already a doctor. Okay. And then after that, they did a really good job of, like I said, when he meets the Ancient One, and they give just enough background as in building up the villain and who he faces up against. They built him up just enough. But the one thing that I really, really liked is that there's so many visual effects, and there's just so much. It's not, and this is again why I say that I really wish that I would have seen it in 3D, and I hope that I still get to have that chance this week coming up when my brothers come into town, because there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of stimulus, and there's a lot of visual effects that come at you. And at one point, I kind of felt that this was kind of like a psychological, not psychological, but a psychic trip. Like, when well, actually I wouldn't know, but when it's described, like when you're like on an LSD trip, okay, like I said, I wouldn't know, and I don't know if you guys would know, but there's a point, and you guys will see in the movie, if you have seen it or if you're going to go see it, what I'm talking about. It's when he first meets the Ancient One. And so they did a really good job. There's a lot of effects, there's a lot of colors, but not too much to where it overwhelms you. It's just enough to give you that perspective. And then, of course, like I said, he goes on to this epic battle against this epic, like an epic battle against a villain, of course. And then how that works out. But I liked in the movie at the end, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end, but I do like the one because to me, it was a really good movie of having to make difficult decisions as well. That there was that underlining storyline of having to take away from yourself and choosing to either serve yourself or to choose to serve others was also in that movie for me. And so I think that they did a really, really good job with this one. It was a little bit different than what I'm used to, and it was different in the fact also that as far as him being a superhero, is that he wasn't made this way. In the movie, it shows you that he wasn't made this way. He wasn't bit by an insect. He didn't have he wasn't a experiment gone rogue or anything like that. And so that part was a little bit different. So that part is different than what we are typically used to in the origin stories of a superhero. He was more, it was what his intelligence and his background as a doctor that helped him into becoming a better superhero, yes, but he obtained his powers on his own. Like, he had to work for it, and he had to due to circumstances is how he kind of stumbled upon this new legacy as being a sorcerer. And so that part I thought was really cool, that it wasn't the whole, like I said, the experiment gone wrong or a radioactive anything. Like, he wasn't dipped into anything. And so I'm very, very excited for this movie. I loved it, and I would give it a go again. I do want to see it again, like I said. And then for those of you who don't quite know Doctor Strange, now Doctor Strange is, like I said, a Marvel character, okay? And according to Marvel's own website, and this is like the really cool thing that I found out, and if you are into Marvel, then you guys are probably like, P, why is it taking you so long to know this? And I am so sorry that it has taken, truly, honestly, like, I really am actually very sad, and that it took me this long to learn about this entire new world for me of Marvel comics. So, or just comics in general. Now, you could go on marvel.com/universe/Doctor_Strange_ or you could just Google it, marvel.com Doctor Strange. Okay. And then what it's really cool is that you can get like the whole entire story and they have like quick, you can get quick facts, like for instance, like it says universe, Marvel Universe, real name, Stephen Vincent Strange, aliases, it lists his other aliases. So Sorcerer Supreme, Master of the Mystic Arts, and then let's see what else, identity. And then under identity, it lists the general public regards Strange as an ordinary occult scholar, if not a charlatan. Okay, citizenship, USA, place of birth, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then it tells us when he first appeared. So his first appearance is in Strange Tales number 110, and that came out in 1963. So even though he's fairly new to me, he's not new to you guys as far as those who are avid comic readers. And then it also tells where you can find out about his origin. So then there's Stranger Tales number 115, Doctor Strange number 169, and then Doctor Strange number 45. And then also, like I said, like it's so cool because then you could look up. So when you are being introduced to these different superheroes and these different comic book characters, it's really cool because if you fall in love with them, like I have fallen in love with Doctor Strange, then you can go and research them and learn more about them. And then, which makes it a lot more fun when you watch all of these other comic book movies and you'll watch like the Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxies, because it makes more sense and you see how all these superheroes are tied into one another and their storylines. And so it's really actually a lot of fun. And then under Doctor Strange, you can list like it'll show like his known relatives, his group affiliation. And that's what I was saying when it says, according to Marvel.com, formerly Avengers, the Order, Defenders, Midnight Suns, and then former disciple of the Ancient One. And then, but like I said, and then it will list like weapons. In his case, it says none. Abilities. He's a skilled athlete and martial artist. Substantial medical and magical knowledge through an expert surgeon, Strange. And then it goes on to tell more about him and how he uses magic and why he uses magic. And so it's actually really cool. And so you could definitely check out Marvel.com. And I actually have been getting lost with it because it even has like a power grid, which is like really, really cool because you can have on here. And with the power grid, what I thought was really cool about it is the fact that they differentiate fan votes versus official ratings because they rate superheroes as well. And then you can, so the power grid is out of 7, and there's like on Doctor Strange's, it lists intelligence, strength, speed, durability, energy projection, fighting skills. And then you can see on there if you felt like, for instance, I thought that he was very, very intelligent, and I was thinking to myself that he is one of the smartest, and especially as far as one of the smartest superheroes that I know. And then if you go on the power grid, it lists on there that according to fan votes, he got a 7 out of 7 on intelligence. So probably after watching this movie or just knowing his background, a lot of us fans of Doctor Strange all agree he is very, very smart, a 7 out of 7. However, as far as official ratings, he only got a 4 out of a 7. A 4. Like, that's like half. Well, technically a little bit more than half if you want to get really, really technical. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's about half. Like, really, they couldn't give him at least a 6. And so you could go on there and you could see what other characters, comic book characters and villains, superheroes, all of that might be rated higher. So like his strength, rightfully so, the official rating is only a 3. He's not like hecka buff, and like especially compared to some like the other guys, right? Durability, he's pretty high. He has a 6 in durability in the official rating, but then his fighting skills are on the official rating a 7 out of 7, but then the fans only voted for his fighting skills, gave him a 5 out of 7, which again, I think that is probably based upon seeing the movie versus seeing and reading about him in the comics. And that's probably why there is some differentials there's a difference between what the fans feel his fighting skills are versus his official rating being a 7 out of 7. So maybe we'll learn that he has better fighting skills than we thought in the next movies to come, because of course, which I totally love. And again, I'll tell you, I was able to appreciate this movie so much more because I'm able to learn more about him, and because I did some research before going to see the movie. And you know how at the end of the Marvel superhero movies and all of that, they kind of give us like a few minutes of like a sneak peek, right, with the credits and all that. So if you guys didn't know and you guys leave right away after the end of the movie, you guys are missing a few minutes of some extra like hints. It's kind of giving us a glimpse on what to expect for like the next movie. And then people, of course, always come up with all these theories about what it means and what's going to happen. And so at the end of Doctor Strange, if you guys haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to say it, but if you guys did see the movie and you guys waited for those end credits, then we're going to see him again. So maybe we'll see why his fighting skills have gone up. Maybe because he does start in martial arts under the Ancient One as well. So maybe he gets and turns into a better fighter, and then we're going to think this, and he's going to showcase. Because honestly, the reason why I didn't think that his fighting skills were as high, because I kind of agree with the whole 5 out of 7 with the other fans, is because he uses a lot of magic. He uses a lot of sorcery. It's not really brute strength, and it's not really at least in this movie, there wasn't a lot of hand-to-hand combat. It was more of his mastery of magic. So hopefully we will be able to see some more from him in some upcoming movies. I'm very, very excited. We already know, like I said, according to the end of the movie, that he will be back, that this is not the end of Doctor Strange. And so I'm really excited to see if will ever really see him and find out, at least on film, when he falls off from the Avengers and why he falls off from the Avengers and what, you know what I'm saying? Because we know that he does eventually, right? Because he's a former Avenger. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see what's to come of Doctor Strange. I'm going to say it. He's my favorite because I think it's really cool how smart he is. And I loved Benedict in this, and honestly Benedict did a really good job. He really made sure, and there's just enough comedy in this movie so that it stays light but it's not a joke. And there's not really I don't think there's really that much blood and stuff now that I'm thinking about it, because like I said, there's not a lot of brute hand-to-hand combat. It's more of the magic side and the sorcery. And so, but like I said, it was a little bit creepy in the beginning. It did creep me out a little bit in the beginning. Some stuff was kind of scary because some stuff I was like, ooh, dark magic, you know, like, ooh, it's crazy. It's scary sometimes. So that's actually going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I realized I went kind of over on this and I didn't get to cut it to another break, which is totally fine. And I did not get around to my other science fiction news, but like I said, I will be sure to drop some of those updates on you on the next episode 35. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the Golden State Media Concepts Science Fiction Podcast. You can listen to this episode again, as well as my next episode and any previous episodes of the Science Fiction Podcast on our network website. That's gsmcpodcast.com, as well as on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Go check out marvel.com, read up on some of these superheroes and comics, and then there's just all this other information on there and all the different characters, the games, the videos, the TV, latest news. It's actually really, really cool. You can and list like their top Marvel heroes, which you may or may not agree with. I don't think it's in any particular ranking. And then they have like the bad guys on there: Loki, Red Skull, Mystic, everybody. They have like the women of Marvel. So there's also Black Widow, Medusa, Mrs. Marvel, Captain Marvel, all of that. And plus, there's a lot going on as far as we're getting a lot more coming out at us, so it's a lot of fun. It's probably a website that I'm definitely going to be on way more often than I should, because I should probably I could always do something more productive, but like I said, it's just so much fun. Like the X-Men, okay, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Defenders. You could click on these little they have like different pictures of them as well, and then they give you like their powers. You can read up more of them on Marvel Universe Wiki, group affiliations. It's just really, really cool, and it's a lot of fun. It tells like their height, their weight, so you could really envision what they look like, all these different characters and different villains, as well as like their full names. So like they might have like the name that we call them, their common name, their most like their superhero name, but they actually have like real names. Like a lot of them have like first, middle, and last. All right. So if you didn't know, now you know. But if you did know, there you go. thank you for allowing me to learn this too. So anyways, I got to go, and I will talk to you guys next time. You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Science Fiction Podcast. I'm out.
Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.